everyone, welcome to Royal Arts. Today, I'm going to be teaching you how to make your very own board game. Since the day I had decided to make a video series on how to make your very own Monopoly, I also wanted to show you guys to make other board games in general, and not so specific like Monopoly. So here is how to make a board game, specially for you. And I'll be showing you an Indian traditional game called Thaayam as an example. So if you were to say it in English, it would be spelled like Thaayam, Thaayam, which means the number 1 in Tamil. So don't worry if you see me using a dice that I bet most of you have never seen before. It is perfectly alright to use the normal number 1 to 6, 6-faced dice. If you are going to follow my Indian traditional game as an example to create a board game. So though there are some features my dice has that the normal dice doesn't, as it is a really old dice used like in the olden days, I guess. So anyways, enjoy! This board is designed so that whenever, whichever direction you're facing, whether it's this side or like this side or this side or this side, it is actually the same thing. So one of the rule is you have to go in the anti-clockwise direction. So if you're starting from here, you basically need 5 stones. So when you're starting, you have to roll a Thaayam, which is basically a 1 in this dice. You see, like this is 1. So when you roll, it's supposed to be a 1. So you start by placing 1 here, and then as you roll, this is 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and you go, then the opponent's turn to play, and he goes in the anti-clockwise direction, which is here. So for example, the movement will be like this. Okay, so I'm just going to trace one movement as like I said, all 4 sides are the same. You move in the anti-clockwise direction like this. And here, you move until here, but you do not go to the start position. Instead, you go to this X and you move up. And then up. And then to the center. Then you score a point. So like this, you have to score 5 points. This is just the template, so it is small. It's not the actual board, so it doesn't fit all these things inside. So the one of the rule is when you are in an X zone, when you're in the X zone, your opponent cannot kill you. So how do you kill your opponent, you may ask? So it's basically if you're, for example, here, if you land here after rolling the dice and your opponent catches up with you, he moves and he comes to this point. Now when he does, you're out. That's how you kill it. But if you're in the X zone and your opponent catches up with you and he lands on the same spot, he cannot kill you. You are safe. So the X zone is the safe zone. Now, what if you get killed? If you get killed, simple. The opponent stays where he is, he or she is. You start back. Now, if you have like many dices, like if you have 1 dice already in the center and you're moving, then too bad, you have to start all over again, which is you have to roll a Thaayam. No, this is not a Thaayam. Yep, Thaayam. So if you're creating a board game, something like this, it may not necessarily be this board game, but if you're planning to create a board game of your own, you must consider these things, like for example the rules, like how do you start, how do you end the game, how do you win the game, and you know what is considered as like a fault, like for example in this game, how to get your opponent killed so that you win, like yeah. So What if you are in somewhere in the middle of the game, like for example here, and when it's your turn, you put a Thaayam. Do you move one step or do you put another dice? The answer is you put another dice. So you have two dice. Wait, no, sorry, two stones. You have two stones moving on the board. So it doesn't matter if you're in the middle or like you already won 1 point. It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, once you put a Thaayam, another dice comes in, and another stone comes into play. Now, when you're like creating your game or planning about the rules and the objectives, you also have to consider the age limit, like the minimum age that is suitable for playing your game. For example, for Monopoly Deal, the ages are 8 and above, and 2 to 5 players can play. And for Uno, it is 7 and above, and 2 to 10 players can play the game. So likewise, when you're like planning your game, you may also want to consider the age group. Like, are you creating this game for teenagers? Are you creating this game for children, like Monopoly Junior, something like that? If you're creating, like, you must know like which age group your game like caters to. So that is a really important one. And the next factor is also the number of players. So for this game, like, I would recommend ages 8 and above, and the players should be minimum 2 and a maximum of 4. This is not a single player game, because one player playing this is going to be really boring. And for you to have a challenge to see whether your opponent kills you or you survived the attack by if you're in the X zone, then 2 players is the minimum. So yeah, these games have the players are minimum 2 and a maximum of 4. So likewise, you have to decide the number of players and the age of the players in your game. So after you draw a mini layout and you planned all your games, so you have a clear idea of my game is going to be like this and you're supposed to play it like this, then like after you have a picture in your mind and you drew the layout of it, the next step is to decide the materials you need to create it. For example, like you are going to use, if you are planning to do a card game, then you need cards. So then you will think, how do I make those cards? Do I like buy them from a gift shop or something, or do I like use drawing blocks to like cut it, like how I showed you in the Monopoly series tutorials. So if you haven't watched them, go and watch them. It is really fun and simple to do. Now back to this. So you need the materials so you have to think of the materials you need to create your game. So if it's a board game, how am I going to prepare the board? Is it going to be magnetic? Is it going to be a chessboard? Like, how many squares am I going to need? So like, what colors am I going to use? Is it going to be black and white, etc., etc.? You're going to decide the materials you need to create it. And then the next step would be simple. Create your game. So with all the materials and all the mini layout for your reference and your rational objectives all in your mind, you can clearly create your game. So after you create it, the last step to make your board game is, I don't know. I mean, you're done with all the board, like making the board games. What more steps do you need? I mean, check for errors. I mean, like, to see if it's really playable. For example, you're going to create a Monopoly series of your own, and you're going to think, how much Monopoly do I distribute for each person? So, for example, you might be thinking, okay, 1,000 Monopoly is enough, but you look at the properties and the money you issued to them. Like, the most expensive property would be like 500 Monopoly. Then you only have 1,000 monopolies. So what if you land on another person's property? You have to pay the rent. So, like, you can get bankrupted, very easily. So that game would not be fun at all. So you have to check for errors. So in order for you to check for errors, you have to play the game to see if it's really playable, to see if it's fun, to see like what other features could I add to this game to make it more interesting. Yep, so on and so forth. So these are the 5 golden steps to make your board game. Thank you so much guys for clicking on this video. I really hope this helped you create your board game and helped your dream games come to life for others to enjoy playing. To know many more useful tips and tricks in art, there's always the subscribe button down below, so click it and stay updated. Cheers!